Welcome to the bullpen, our monthly conversation about markets, and of course, our chance to sit down and visit with Tommy Grisafi from Advance Trading based at Mayville, North Dakota. Tommy, first of all, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thanks, Don. It feels like it's been a year since I've last talked to you on the bullpen. So many things have happened. I'm not even sure where you want to start. What do you think folks watching and listening to this, what do you think they want to hear?
Obviously, we're in a wartime situation. This is something we have not seen, at least very often in our lifetime. So we're really in some kind of rarefied air right now.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, I didn't really think they'd do it. I thought there would be some little bit of conflict on the east side of Ukraine and to do a full-blown invasion. The wildest thing, Don, was they were telling us, our president, their president, world leaders were like, they're going to do it. And yet the markets weren't reacting to it. But of course, as we know now, upon you all watching this, the markets are reacting very much. So we're coming off of back-to-back limit up days, the last day of February, the first day of March. We have crop insurance level that's absolutely incredible. Second best crop insurance price in corn ever. Not far off from the 610 level maybe we had back in 12. Just a dynamic market. And in that crop insurance, as you know, for the growers up here, they're very, very scared to get forward sold for very good reasons. We just experienced one of the worst droughts in modern history up here, and we have prices that are skyrocketing. So if a North Dakota or Northern Plain farmer sold grain and they didn't produce it, oh my, that would be very painful. So we're trying to do that balancing act of how far should we be forward sold? How far should we be forward protected? What tools should we use? Mixing options, futures, HTAs, all these little terms with crop insurance and setting floors. That's what guys like I do. It's easy when a farmer calls in right now and says, where do you think it's going? I say, well, hold on, maybe Putin will call the red phone and let me know first, right? It's a silly question. It's just a conversation piece. I know what they mean. Obviously, really, really, really smart people didn't know this was going to happen. That's why the market's having such a dynamic reaction, Don. Folks are out of position. And I think you're going to hear a couple big ag names here in the next few weeks announce that they have a pretty big financial problem here with prices going up and escalating this quickly.
You got the red phone there. I can see you can go right to it if we need to. Why was the market a bit flat-footed on this situation?
Well, you have to be careful getting too far out, and you go buy a bunch of futures and options and cash grain because you think there could be a war. Obviously, if there's not a war, we could be limit down for several days. Now that we've actually had an invasion and we were at elevated prices when this started, you know, if you think back, I think about all the years of under President Barack Obama, there was not a lot of major conflicts like this. And then you move on to President Trump, which amazingly, you'll think he was involved in all types of wars and conflicts. He actually wasn't. Now we take President Biden, who you think we're going to have a smooth little runway here of peaceful times, and the world erupts, and it's the hangover from COVID, supply chain issues from COVID. And now this, I don't know what folks are calling it. If it's a war or conflict, there's people dying, so it needs to be respected. And there's people being moved around the world. It's not good. And the reason it's so bad is an incredible amount of trading happens with Russia and China in Europe, and all these countries. I mean, right now, America, we're sitting in North Dakota. I'm embarrassed to tell you this. We're sitting in North Dakota and we're importing Russian oil when you and I know we could go drive 4 or 5 hours west and be swimming in pools of oil, and we don't have a pipeline to pipe it. And so when you add all these things up, what America's trying to do with energy independence and switching to batteries, we went a little too far too fast. And now what's happening with natural gas and energy resources in Europe, this is much more dynamic. Your original question was, why was everyone out of position? I guess the reality of thinking if they invade, what the repercussions could be would be too great to actually go put a position on that they're going to do it. But now that they've done it, you're seeing the violent and dramatic, very dramatic and volatile price action, both up and down. We've had several limit up and several limit down days as we end February and come into March days.
Yeah, getting a little whiplash here. You got crude up over $100 a barrel. Commodity prices, like you said, we've seen limit action. Ukraine and Russia, you put them together. This is a big wheat story. They represent almost a third of our wheat business worldwide. Ukraine's a big player. Things like corn, soybeans, sunflowers are a huge sunflower marketplace. What happens really in the world dynamics now as we really take those folks out of the market? Even if this ends short term, they're not going to be moving product out of there for months anyway.
Right. A couple things happen. One thing that it's hard to talk about, but food insecurity. There's plenty of people around the world that don't get a good square meal once a day, let alone 3 times a day. And when you have supply chain issues like this and rampant food inflation, at some point someone yells uncle and they can't afford to buy food. So unfortunately, the people who need the food the most are going to get the least or have the least buying power. So as the world markets are actually starting to tumble upon filming this, we have rampant inflation. As you know, typically when we have inflation, what's the best thing to do? Raise interest rates and make the money supply tighter. And anytime in history, when we've had a world conflict, what Federal Reserves tend to do is make the money supply easier to get to. If you think about 9/11 or any problems we've had, the pandemic was a great example. They were very aggressive, lowering interest rates and flooding the system with money, the PPE loans and everything else. So as we talk about this, we have rampant inflation. We're at zero interest rates. If the world economies start to collapse, which the Atlanta Fed today announced that in a quarter or two, they think GDP will be at zero. And the 10-year yields already collapsed from 2.20 down to 1.70 today. That happened in 4 days. So folks watching this are like, oh, I heard the Fed's going to raise 7/4 points. That's been taken out. We're down to a 1/2 to 3/4 of a interest rate raise in a time when the world economies could use the money. But having access to money, Don, isn't as big of a problem. Is actual logistics, getting those ships in and out of those ports, loading them up, having the people knowing they're safe. So if you look at a country like Egypt, they're in a pickle. They buy most of their wheat from who? Russia and the Ukraine. Where are they going to come? They're going to come to America. They're going to come to Canada. Canada doesn't have a lot of wheat after last year's drought. So wheat definitely became a hot topic here. And you can see by the price action at the Chicago Board of Trade, Kansas City Exchange, and the Minneapolis Grain Exchange, just dynamic volatile moves. And I imagine, unfortunately, you'll hear of some people who really were out of position on this. I'm already starting to hear of a couple firms who have large groups of farmers sold dollars ago with no potential to gain any of that upside back, my friend. And as you know, bull markets don't happen often. You want to participate in those.
You talk about participating. Some of the stuff's happening overnight. We trade almost 24 hours a day. How does a farmer make sure that he is able to be a part of this market?
Right. Well, that's a great question. You take what happened the night of the invasion, that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, markets, soybeans were up 90, corn was up limit, and then synthetically 15 cents through that. I must have had a dozen clients call me and say, oh, I couldn't get a hold of my elevator guy. Well, I don't think most people answer their phones at 2 a.m. So 2 things you could do: get a futures and options account and execute the trade yourself. It's not 1970. You don't wait. You don't need to wait for the elevator guy to wake up to take your order. It's 2022 and Russia just invaded the Ukraine, and we're all walking around with $1,000 smartphones. So let's be smart and start using them. No one needs to be a victim here. If you want to sell beans up 90 or corn up 50, you get a futures and options account. Brokers like me, cheap plug, but nights of wars, I'm up 24 hours a day. My phone rings and I'm not afraid to take folks' call and service the clients. So we had several customers sell a lot of futures that night. And of course, old school target orders. The best way to sell beans up 90 and corn at ridiculous levels is to have an order sitting up there. Don't do the old cancel if close. I read something that's going to go higher. I mean, the fact you could have sold beans up 90 and they closed down 50 or 60 that day was just absolute incredible price action. So I started off with two things. It's actually three. You could have your own futures and options account. You could have a broker. You could leave orders at the elevator. You have choices, but the world and the markets aren't going to wait for everyone to wake up and then say, okay, let's get together and discover price. And as you know, you visited the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade and the CME Group many times. I'm sitting here recording this in Mayville, North Dakota, in a real trading office with access to markets across the world. Do yourself a favor, get access to markets, educate yourself. And if you need help, ask for it, Don.
I know you were up. We were doing an interview at 4 o'clock that morning when
I did receive a text from Mr. Wick. Are you up? And I think I sent you the LOL laughing emoji back. Yes, I was up. Of course.
Yeah, of course. One thing we've talked a lot about in these bullpen sessions, Tommy, has been the veg oil market with what's going on with the explosion in the soybean crush. Ukraine is huge in sunflowers, and obviously that's going to change right now with what's happening in the Ukraine. Palm oil, those stocks have been non-existent. We don't have a lot going on in that part of the veg oil market. What does that mean for us when we try to look at getting into renewable diesel and some kind of those kind of things with the soybean oil, the veg oils? Is that a story, or are we too far ahead on that one?
No, absolutely. It was the agricultural space. I didn't start a podcast called the Ag Bull Podcast because I think agriculture is going in the sewer. I was bullish agriculture and what's going on here in North Dakota for the last 7 years. That's why I came up here. And to think about what prices are doing in canola and our ability to expand soybean acres, we had a wonderful, wonderful bean and bean oil story. We have a wonderful corn story with our ethanol plants and the grain we use within the state, grain we export here in the United States, or that ships within the United States, and then grain that ships internationally. We had a great story for all this started. The people who really have the trouble is the world market. So we're going to start fighting. Hog farmers in Iowa are going to fight for corn that someone somewhere else in the world wants, and someone else in the world is going to have to pay dollars and dollars higher. Our bean oil, veg oil story is not going away. And you can see that reflected in the price of soybean oil at the Board of Trade and canola oil trading across the world. I did not know about Ukraine and the sunflowers until all this started. Obviously, there's not sunflower futures. It's not something I'm actively involved with, but it's something we do grow a lot of and can grow a lot of here in the great state of North Dakota, my friend.
Tom, you talked earlier about crop insurance. We've got the price discovery period now behind us with February crop insurance deadlines just ahead of us. This really gave us a boost. It was strong all month long, but that's got to help us as we look at risk management going into this 22 growing season.
Incredible opportunities with crop insurance. You have to sign up by March 15th, call your local crop insurance agent or whoever you're comfortable with. There's a few other things going on this year that the pencil needs to be pushed to this one. At what % coverage you buy, what policy you buy, enterprise units versus optional. What a great opportunity to manage risks, especially in a state that we're just coming off a severe drought. So crop insurance is going to play very important. I had the chance to visit with Senator Hoeven, was here at Mayville University Sunday night, and also Congressman Kelly Armstrong. Thank you. And that was a little heated. I sent you a picture. That was a little heated meeting there in Mayville University. And I believe Senator Hoeven's opponent said that he doesn't like crop insurance. And I was standing right next to him, and you should have seen the look on his face. I said, "You don't like crop insurance?" He went up there and gave that room his opinion. Crop insurance is here to stay. It's very important to farming in the state of North Dakota. And I can assure you from the senator's mouth and to your farm that crop insurance is going to stay here and stay viable here in North Dakota. Never in the history of farming or anyone watching this video has this been such an important year to understand risk management, crop insurance, futures, options. And then of course, Don, we talk about all these things. Anyone watching this who's an actual producer, the most important thing you can do is produce the bushel. And to produce the bushel, you're going to need to have your seed, your fertilizer, your chemicals. That could be yet another hiccup or canary in the coal mine, or the ultimate black swan is will we continue, and from what's just happened here in this war/conflict, if we thought we had supply chain issues the last few months, give it a few weeks or a few months, this is going to rock people's world, and it could be to a benefit to a few, or it could really be end up very sad to people trying to produce a crop who don't have the proper supplies. So you could sign up for the crop insurance, you could do all the futures and options you want. If you don't have the seed, the fertilizer, and the chemicals, you're going to be in a pickle.
Yeah, this fertilizer thing, we obviously have had sticker shock all winter long because of that price tag. That's not changing here. It's only going to go up. But as you said, if we can get it, now that we've lost a key area where we bring in fertilizer.
Absolutely. So we're all learning together. Not a day that goes by that I don't watch 5 or 6 YouTube videos about what SWIFT is and how money travels around the world. I'm like everyone else. I'm up watching multiple news channels, multiple Twitter news feeds, and digesting all this. But you have to be flexible. I mean, if we were to end it anywhere, is that because this has never happened doesn't mean you need to go broke or take a large financial loss to your farm and then go tell everyone for the next 10, 20 years that in 2022, this had never happened and you didn't know it could happen. We've seen a lot of things over the last few years that have never happened. And from the looks of it, my friend, we're going to continue to see volatility and rewrite all the history books on what happened in 2021 and 22 and many years beyond.
No doubt. Tom, I always enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Tommy Grisafi with us. That's the bullpen. Of course, Tommy from Advanced Trading at Mayville, North Dakota. I'm Don Wick. Thanks for joining us on the bullpen.